This is the Blood Red podcast from the Liverpool Echo.
Hello and welcome to the agenda here on the Blood Red channel. I'm Guy Clarke. Alongside me, Theo Squires, as we get set to talk about one standout individual from the Reds' 7-2 pre-season friendly win over Blackpool at Anfield on Saturday. And that man is Takumi Minamino. Theo, thanks for your time. How are you keeping, mate?
Yeah, not too bad. Certainly better at the final whistle yesterday than I was at half-time. Encouraging display from all of them. Gives you that hunger back, doesn't it, ahead of the new season when you can watch Liverpool put 7 goals past the team, no matter who they are.
Yeah, obviously went in behind 2-1 at half-time, but 6 goals in the second half. And mentioned Minamino already. We are going to talk about him and what the season ahead may have in store for him, but he really was at the centre of absolutely everything in that second half, wasn't he?
Yeah, he was brilliant. When the team sheet dropped and you're looking at the starting 11 and the forward players, I don't think anyone really knew how Liverpool would line up. In the Community Shield, obviously they finished in the 4-2-3-1 with Salah up front, Firmino just behind, and Minamino on the left. So there was that thinking that maybe he was in that role, or maybe he'd be in a midfield 3, you know, how Liverpool traditionally line up with Fabinho deeper. Even the club channel, they didn't really know. They had it with the normal midfield 3 with Minamino in there, but said it could be a 4-2-3-1. Just have to wait and see. And then as soon as it kicked off, it was very clear that Minamino was in this number 10 position behind Roberto Firmino with Salah and Mane in their traditional roles. And what was most pleasing for me is how well he linked up with Roberto Firmino. We all know the criticisms the Brazilian had last season with maybe not scoring enough goals, not offering as much as he could. But the two of them, they were involved in everything. And you think at times when Firmino is impossible to defend against, well, imagine having 2 of him. And that is essentially what Liverpool have got when they've got Minamino there. Harrying defenders as well. They can switch positions. And it was quite telling in the second half that they both got a goal. They both got an assist. They set up each other. And they were really well-worked goals. Great vision. They both could have scored more. And it was a really blossoming partnership. It's positive signs for Liverpool going into the new season. You've had the criticism or the disbelief in the past that Liverpool haven't signed a forward player. Obviously, we had all that debacle with Timo Werner, with fans expecting him to join and Liverpool not making the move. They've not really played with a number 10 since Philippe Coutinho left the club, and there's still fans that would like a replacement for him. But when you've got someone like Minamino who's beginning to play into form, having got his first goal against Arsenal last week, when he's capable of playing the number 10 up front, out wide on either flank, it gives Liverpool options. And when we've seen a few times last season, when Liverpool were against these teams that were just going to sit deep and defend, they struggled to break them down. They needed that creativity. They needed that extra body in attack. And it's why we've seen links with Thiago. And you want that bit more from this Liverpool attacking side. Well, maybe Jurgen Klopp stumbled across the answer here, because if Minamino, he's got that work rate where he will get back in midfield, he will defend, but he can break down defences, he can harry them, and he can just be this extra body in attack. He's proven that he's got the goal-scoring ability and he can create. It's definitely something else to consider for defences when they're coming to Anfield, rather than just watching Mohamed Salah or Sadio Mane run at them.
Yeah, and really interesting, I suppose, as well in how that formation was set up, that it allowed both Mane and Salah to stay in effectively their best positions, those wide forward positions, and then come into the box late on. And as you say, Roberto Firmino, you're never going to expect him to be a fox in the box, number 9, an out-and-out poacher, albeit his goal was quite poacher-esque, being only 6 yards out and with that nice flick into the back of the net from the link-up with Minamino. But even at times, it becomes sort of like a 4-2-2-2, doesn't it? Because of how Firmino still drops so deep, and so does Minamino, and the two of them really interchange, and there is that fluidity between them.
Yeah, definitely. It's been a key part of Liverpool's attack ever since Jurgen Klopp brought this front 3 together, that Roberto Firmino can play anywhere across that front 3, and you'll have Salah and Mane cutting inside, causing defenders problems, and they're difficult to track. The only issue with it is in that first season, teams defended high against them. Liverpool had that strength where they could just bomb forward, get in behind defences, and Salah and Mane would score a lot of goals. Obviously, Salah then got 2 men marking him pretty much for a season, and it allowed Mane to get more space, Mane to get more goals. But now defenders are looking at them and see they're both threats. You can't choose one over the other. You have to just take both of them out of the game and limit them, man mark them. So if you've got that aspect of their play limited, it's, well, what can Roberto Firmino do? Because as you say, he's not a fox in the box. He's not going to win game after game, scoring 20, 30 goals a season. And we see him go wing to wing to try and create the space for the front 2. but maybe he can become that player when he's got Minamino alongside him, because that means one of them is free to go and do this harrying all over that final third, and one of them can just stay central. It gives them that extra option, the extra player for defences to worry about, and it's that extra man for the front three to pass to, isn't it? So they can all link up as well. It's not as predictable when the fact that the system is going to be give it to Firmino, he will find one of the wingers and they will score. Now you've got that extra aspect. And with the way it lined up yesterday as well, with Naby Keita, he was still involved, still getting forward. Curtis Jones was as well when he was coming on. It allowed the midfield to get involved too. And it was definitely a pleasing thing to see when you think Liverpool have been their crucial play for the last 2 seasons has been the fullbacks, Andy Robertson, Trent Alexander-Arnold getting assists. Well, they're on international duty. Liverpool didn't have them yesterday, and they found a way to score a lot of goals and create a lot of chances with a new style. And granted, it's only pre-season against League One Blackpool, but promising signs there in that second half that it could be a new style for Liverpool to implement when they want to vary things up to challenge teams.
Yeah, definitely. And that Coutinho comparison's quite interesting as well, because albeit they are very different players, but arrived for very similar transfer fees. I think Coutinho was 8.5, wasn't it, from Inter Milan, and whereas for Takumi Minamino, £7.25 million from RB Salzburg during the winter transfer window. But in how it transforms Liverpool's forward three back to a four, because obviously when Coutinho was there, it very much was a four. And that was when, of course, Mohamed Salah was in such fine form for Liverpool.
Yeah, I'd agree with that. When Coutinho was in that midfield three, he's more, I suppose, a luxury player, if you want to call him that, because whilst he can be that body in the midfield, you're not expecting him to go into thunderous challenges or harry defenders the same way. He's very much a skillful player. He'll drop his shoulder, beat a man, and then try and score from 30 yards or pick this pinpoint through ball. Whereas Minamino, there's more work rate about him, but he's got the creativity and the link-up play, as we saw for his goal against Arsenal, as we saw yesterday when he kept linking up with Firmino. Liverpool have had to rely on the fullbacks and the front three. Granted, they've had like Alex Oxlade-Chamberlain who can provide them goals, but you pretty much know where the goal is going to come from. You know where the assists are going to come from, and the midfield has been criticised for that. With Jordan Henderson's not offering enough goals. Gino Wijnaldum, that's been a big criticism that some people have issued at him, that he hasn't got an assist for a year, 2 years. He doesn't score enough when we know he's got the talent. But it's just the way Liverpool set up. And whilst it's been that system for so long now, it is good to be able to see them rotate it, put the midfield on its head with a man in front of it rather than behind, and do that Coutinho number 10 role, so to speak. I'm not going to say that you're going to see Minamino do some of the brilliance that we saw from Coutinho, where he would just pick the ball up 30 yards and goal and put it in the top corner. But then that isn't really Liverpool's style. He fits into that front three more. And you'd like to think he'd probably fit in with the fullbacks more when they're back in the game, because it can just be those quick movements, quick passes, linking up, and you don't know which player to track, because all of them, if they can pick the pass, will get on the end of it. They're all capable of scoring goals, and it just makes them a much more deadlier attacking threat when you've got these extra options.
Have we seen from his pre-season form then, and certainly the Community Shield goal and obviously his performance against Blackpool, Jurgen Klopp spoke throughout sort of the summer through Project Restart after winning the league and in the build-up to the Community Shield game, how no one in his squad needs to prove anything to him because he knows what they're all about. He spoke about Minamino and how he's had this 6-month, 8-month transitional period to get used to the culture and the pace of the game over here. And are we now beginning to see sort of all of that come together in how Jurgen Klopp made him essentially the fulcrum of that attack in the number 10, things really going through Minamino yesterday, and now actually he may well have benefited from that settling in period, a bit like the likes of Fabinho and Andy Robertson beforehand, having a bit of time around the camp before really asserting themselves on the first team.
Alex Oxlade-Chamberlain too, of course. I think Liverpool play a very set way, a very specific way, and it does take time for players to adjust. Klopp said it himself about Tsimikas only a couple of weeks ago after, I think it was the Stuttgart friendly, that you have to take time to get used to this style and play the Liverpool way. Just because you've got the attributes to play it doesn't mean you can walk in and make an instant impact. It's rare that a player comes into this Liverpool side and does do that. I think Mohamed Salah is probably the obvious exception, but he was taking the whole side to the next level. And it's good to see that he has been given that time to bed in. For those first 6 months or so, he was trying to find his position, I suppose, in the team, so to speak. It's like, we've got this option that is more similar to Firmino as this number 9, but he didn't get the goal and assist. We've already heard from him how he found that frustrating, that he wasn't able to contribute that way. And there were times where he was showing his talent, but he'd looked lost a little bit in games as well. And it was the same when he was out wide. But you think he's been playing in Austria. We all know how physical the English Premier League can be and how much it's going to be a step up coming from any league, never mind somewhere that is not one of those big 5 major European leagues. So it was always going to take him time to bed in. There's the language barrier as well. Granted, he'll be able to speak, I think, German with some of his teammates, with his manager, but it still is a big adjustment for him. And we think he's made this move middle of the season. That's never easy. And then you've got a lockdown where you're not supposed to leave your house, football suspended for 2-3 months, so you can't get those games in. And at the same time, Liverpool were going for a league title, so it wasn't really the time to change things and try something a bit different to throw him in. When you had a formula that was working, winning games, it was just to get Liverpool over the line. He needed pre-season. We said all along we'd see the best of Takumi Minamino in next season, 18 months' time. And the signs so far in pre-season are good. For me, he's been one of Liverpool's better performers. Granted, he wouldn't have had anything to prove to Jurgen Klopp. He has the talent, that's why he signed him. But he would have had something to prove to the fan base and to himself that he had the quality to play for Liverpool, to play for the world champions, to play for the Premier League champions. And the signs are good now. We're starting to see the player that looks so threatening against Liverpool in the Champions League back last winter.
Yeah, and of course, and when he played in that system as well, they obviously always played with an out-and-out striker for him to play in that space, almost that a player on the back line would create for the attacking midfield players in the system he played in at Salzburg. But I just wonder your thoughts, Theo, on what we've seen from him in pre-season now, and the fact that it was League One opposition. Liverpool did change that midfield around the likes of Jordan Henderson, Gini Wijnaldum, Alex Oxlade-Chamberlain, all unavailable, whether through injury or away on international duty. So does it then, in terms of Jurgen Klopp's thinking or in terms of looking at Liverpool, do you think that performance maybe, and his performance off the bench against Arsenal in the Community Shield, does actually point at a tangible option for Liverpool, even in big games, to go 4-2-3-1 and really give Minamino that trust to become a regular first-team player this season at Liverpool?
It's a big ask for the big games. I can't imagine that Jurgen Klopp would rotate his midfield as such to have that such an attacking presence against the Manchester City, for example, because that's when you need your bodies in midfield. But then with the style, he would threaten teams. Like we saw Liverpool was so dangerous against them when they had Alex Oxlade-Chamberlain in that attacking midfield role a couple of seasons ago. So the option is there. I think for Liverpool, it's most pleasing for those games last season where, granted, they got it over the line by winning by the odd goal, but they really had to work for it. And it was really nitty-gritty against the lesser sides in the Premier League without being demeaning to any of them. The ones that will just sit deep, absorb all that pressure, try and stop them scoring or limit them as much as they can and try and grab a goal. Off the top of my head, I can think of like Bournemouth at Anfield, that was an odd goal. Norwich at Carrow Road, that was 1-0 late on. Wolves was a tight game as well. There were a lot of games like that for Liverpool last season. And that's when you want that extra body, when you know teams are going to sit deep, so you have more time on the ball. You're not going to have that space in behind them, when you're going to have to just be careful with how you pick your passes. So having that extra body in there to cause them those problems, that's when this system will be most dangerous. We saw it in the Community Shield when Liverpool changed formation. Arsenal were sitting deep, absorbing the pressure, trying to keep the ball when they could, and Liverpool was struggling against it by putting that extra attacking option in to make it a 4-2-3-1. They looked a lot better and they caused Arsenal a lot of problems. But that was without the players in their favoured positions. Doing it in the setup we saw yesterday was them all in their favoured positions. I think any player, if they're in a position they're most comfortable in, you're going to see the best of them. So hopefully, if it is something Klopp turns to more regularly this season, it can have the same impact, and we'll maybe see Liverpool put in the sort of performances we've seen from Man City against those lesser teams, where rather than scrambling their way to a 2-0, admittedly comfortable win, we could see them putting 4 goals, 5 goals past teams.
Yeah, and I think the point you make there in terms of the likes of Mane, Salah and Firmino, obviously in those roles, it was not disrupting that flow, but also working Minamino into that system. And it did work really well against Blackpool. We'll have to see if Jurgen Klopp does stick with it and how much he goes with it during the Premier League. Of course, the next campaign now less than a week away as Leeds United are the first visitors to Anfield for the new Premier League season as Liverpool get their title defence underway. But from myself, Guy Clarke, and Theo Squires here on the agenda on the Blood Red channel, thanks for joining us. Remember to like, rate, review and subscribe wherever it is you get your audio on demand, or if you're joining us here on the Blood Red YouTube channel. But until next time, it's bye for now.